What's up, Will?
New Orleans sports talk about your favorite teams. Sports 1280.
Let's head over to Oakland, California. Will Guillory, NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, covers the Pelicans and has been out there for many a day. And now we got Game 2 coming up tonight, 9:30 tip. Of course, you can follow all of his coverage at NOLA.com or on Twitter at Will Guillory. And you can listen to the game right here on our sister station, 99.5 FM WRNO. Will, we just played the Q&A from Anthony Davis in the previous segment, and it's not like Anthony Davis ever gets overly emotional about anything, but I'm assuming the team, one loss is not going to have them go in the complete tank, even though it was a pretty convincing loss in Game 1. What's the mentality been like for this team from the guys you've talked to over the last couple of days heading into tonight's Game 2?
Yeah, I think just watching them at practice has kind of been surprising to see. They've been pretty upbeat. They still feel pretty good about themselves. Obviously, they aren't happy about that result. They thought that not only did that, Golden State beat them up a little bit, but that they kind of fell out of a lot of the stuff that they did during that first round series. They thought that, kind of just that snowball effect happened on them, and they just kind of lost their minds a little bit in that first half. So I think they looked at that and said that, if they come back in Game 2 and really stick to their game plan, stick to what they found success with, during that previous 9-game winning streak, that they think they should have a good chance. But overall, I think they're feeling pretty confident, and AD in particular feels like if he comes out and has a better game, then he can give the team a good shot at winning this game tonight.
Well, they had to prepare for one team in Game 1. Steph Curry certainly brings a different element to this game in Game 2, brings an element on defense and on offense for each side of the ball. How different is this going to be for this Pelicans team with Curry coming back tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it's really crazy to think that they broke a record. I mean, they broke a franchise record for points in a quarter and points in the first half in Game 1. They didn't even have Steph Curry, so that tells you just kind of what kind of firepower this team has, and I think it's pretty scary to think they can add maybe the greatest shooter of all time to this lineup and just be even more dangerous just because he spaces the floor so well. I think something interesting Alvin Gentry said was the fact that, they're not going to come back and say, hey, we got to get Steph Curry some shots to make sure he's involved. They're going to come in and really run the offense and really just stick to what they've been doing, and they don't feel the need to really give the ball to Steph Curry so he can get back in the rhythm. He could just run the offense the way it already is, and he can get his shots. So I think that's what makes this team so dangerous is that they share the ball so well. They all play together, and Steph is just going to get his in the rhythm of the offense. So I think the big thing for the Pelicans is just to kind of avoid the mental mistakes that hurt them in that first game. I think that's what killed them more than anything. You just saw guys cutting wide open to the basket, guys running in transition, getting wide open threes, wide open dunks. So that's the biggest thing is for them to really get rid of those mistakes where they're kind of just self-inflicted. And if they can do that, then they feel like maybe they can have a better chance. But having Steph Curry out there, I mean, that's just another opportunity for you to maybe run out at him and leave somebody else open. So it's going to be a big test for them just to really stay locked in on defense and make sure they stick to what they're doing and not allow those guys to run free the way that they were in Game 1.
Well, one of the things that we brought up, or at least that I brought up, when we were talking in the first hour was it seemed like, we talked about how the Pelicans and how NBA teams going to the playoffs are looking to trim down their roster, really kind of use the guys that they know are their best chances to win. But for me, we saw a lot of this late. Would it kind of behoove the Pelicans maybe to try to switch some things up? By chance, maybe you throw a Emeka Okafor out there for maybe a couple minutes. Maybe you give Crawford a few more minutes in some key moments, maybe in the second quarter, maybe in the third. Because if you're just going to rely on, Darius Miller and Ian Clark and Solo Hill and guys like that with the matchups that the Warriors present and the nightmares that they are, would it kind of be time to maybe throw a couple different things at it just to kind of see what you can get and give maybe some of the starters just a tiny bit of a break just to see what can happen?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Alvin Gentry does try to switch things up a little bit tonight just to see, what can work. I think just for my own personal entertainment, I would love to see him give my guy Instant Grist 30 minutes tonight.
Absolutely.
Just jack some shots up. See if he could drop 40 tonight. That would be great for me. And for me, I don't know what the final score would be, but that would be fun to watch. But I think, a big reason why you don't see coaches expand their rotation in the playoffs is just because you got to really lock in on the defensive end. And as good as Jordan Crawford was in that fourth quarter, he probably gave up 20 on the other end just because he was giving up those back cuts and stuff like that. So I think a lot of times you see Gentry trust these guys like Darius Miller and Etuan Moore and Ian Clark because they work together so much on the defensive end that they can make it work in these tougher environments. And I don't know if he really trusts the Jordan Crawfords or the Emeka Okafors in these type of environments. And I think especially Emeka, if they're going to continue playing that small lineup with Draymond at the 5 and Kevin Durant at the 4, it's really tough for him to find a really good matchup on the floor. So I think that's why you kind of saw a guy like Cheikh Diallo and Emeka Okafor kind of get cut out of the rotation in that first game. But I wouldn't be surprised if you saw maybe a few more minutes for Cheikh in this game just because the Warriors seem like they really like their young guy, Kevon Looney, coming off of the bench. They were playing JaVale McGee some minutes. I think they want to play their center some minutes. Obviously, they went small to match up with the way that the Pelicans play small with Mirotic at the 4 and AD at the 5. So I think that's what the Warriors really want to do is kind of stay small as much as possible. But I think if they want to keep playing those big guys off the bench, you might see a little bit of Cheikh, maybe some Jordan Crawford, maybe a little bit of some of those other guys. But I think overall, Gentry, he said it over and over again, he wants to stick to what he's doing. He feels like his team has the right game plan. They just have to execute it, and he feels like they're going to have a good chance. So I don't expect a lot of changes, but maybe if this thing starts slipping away again in the first half, you can't keep doing the same thing and expect it to eventually work.
Right. If you haven't found a definition of insanity, that's clearly what it is. But you also brought up the player that I think, your story was so interesting after the loss because, for as much as we talk about Kevin Durant, we're talking about Steph Curry coming back, we talk about Klay Thompson, the highlight of that entire game was Draymond Green's triple-double. Clearly, when he is playing that way and when he is providing that type of positive play for the Warriors, it's hard for any team in the NBA to stop that. What do the Pelicans have to do to try to limit him and limit his influence on the game as far as not trying to get in his head and start a complete riot?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes two ways because I think the really interesting way they used Draymond in that first game was, like I said, they started out with that small ball unit. They had him at the 5 guarding Anthony Davis because they just wanted, he's their best defender, and you want to put your best defender on the other team's best player. So I think that was a really smart strategy by Steve Kerr, moving him to the 5. They were really able to get up and down and take the Pelicans away from some of that trapping defense they used where the Pelicans against the Trailblazers were saying, okay, we're going to send multiple people at Damian Lillard, and we're just going to make Al-Farouq Aminu take shots no matter what. We're just going to leave him wide open, and he just won't have any choice to take shots. And what Steve Kerr did was he said, okay, if you're going to leave guys wide open, we're just going to have shooters everywhere. So if you're leaving people open, you're going to end up giving up three-pointers. So I think that's what hurt the Pels a little bit in that first game. But what they did once they started bringing in big guys off the bench, they moved Draymond Green over to Rajon Rondo, which is really interesting to say, hey, you're a guy that guards the center and the point guard. But what Draymond did was once he moved over to Rondo, he was able to just leave Rondo open on the perimeter and just help in the paint as much as possible. And when he's in the fray like that, that's what Steve Kerr said after the game. He just loves putting Draymond Green in the middle of the action. And when Draymond's in there in the middle of the paint, guys flying around, he feels like Draymond's going to always make plays. So the big thing for them is just to really attack him as much as possible. If he's going to be guarding point guards on the perimeter, I think Rondo and Drew Holiday have to be really aggressive, just going directly at him and getting it to the paint. Because I think that was part of the issue in the first game was you saw so often Rondo and Drew just at the rim constantly against Portland, and that just wasn't the case in Game 1. So I think those guys have to really pick up their aggression, get into the paint as much as possible. And then also, it falls on Anthony Davis. If he's got Draymond Green on him, he's got to attack him. I don't think anybody on this Golden State roster can defend him. I don't think that's a big shock to anybody listening. I think he has the advantage in this series, and he really has to take advantage of it. 21 points is good. It's a good game for a lot of people, but for AD, he's got to be better than that against this team. He's got to be outstanding. He's got to be the best player on the court if they have a chance in this series. So it's going to be a lot on his shoulders tonight to really come out. They're going to need him to have one of those 30, 35, 40-point games we've seen out of him so many times to really give them a chance in this tough environment.
Will Guillory, NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, covering the Pelicans out in Oakland. He will be there tonight. Maybe he'll be back for Game 5 if the Pelicans can keep this series going. Key game tonight, obviously. Game 2. Will be covering it all for us at NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Will, appreciate all the great insight as always, my friend.
Hey, guys, I appreciate you for having me. And some of us are actually on the road working, unlike Jeff. He's just out vacationing at the Kentucky Derby, but some of us have to work.
Jeff's out. Here's what Jeff's doing. Jeff is probably wearing jeans, shirtless on a horse, posing for the cover of like a romance novel. He thinks he's Fabio. That's what I think is going on right now.
He's going to need a great wig.
Just waving in the wind.
His hair is waving. Yeah, maybe he's wearing a wig. You never know. Maybe. I'm not sure. I know. We have just painted a disturbing picture, and that's what we love to do. Thanks, Will. Party on.
Hey, I'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Will Guillory, the only full-time Pelicans beat writer covering the team for a major media outlet here in New Orleans.
On the loneliest beat in the NBA.
Well, he's got some company, I guess.
Yeah,
a little bit.
There's a little bit.
Yep. Hell, we're going to keep you company for one more segment.
At
Good
least.
times. Well, it better not be at least.
That's a good point.
That's something that happened to Eric Asher, which I don't think that's the case. All right, one more segment here on a Tuesday. Come on back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Dunc Holder.